My name is Ben Holberg, and for my final project, I delved into the film Selma from 2014. Selma is a film that focuses on the 1965 marches from Selma to Montgomery that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led against the backdrop of extreme systemic racism and violent segregation in the Deep South. The film demonstrates that intersection between politics and grassroots activism. Selma portrays the struggles of Dr. King's negotiations with President Johnson, the brutality of the local authorities' resistance, and the courage of the ordinary citizens who chose to stand up for what they believed in. Selma underscores the Black community's resilience and the power of faith and shared purpose. It also exposes the calculated resistance to civil change while displaying a facade of celebration after the Civil Rights Act of 1965. The film explores the personal toll of leadership on Dr. King while also displaying his vulnerabilities, including the major strain on his marriage. Selma interrogates the dynamics of racism, gender, privilege, power, and oppression. Not only was the Civil Rights Act about voting rights, but also about the broader struggle of intersecting oppressions. The main focus of the film is the systemic Jim Crow laws of the Deep South, despite the Black community's constitutional protections. It also highlighted the oppressive structures such as intimidation, poll taxes, and literacy taxes that were designed to maintain white supremacy over Black voters. Violent responses, particularly Bloody Sunday, displayed the lengths the states were willing to go to uphold their racial hierarchies. Examples of internalized coercement of turning the Black community on themselves with FBI informants was also apparent. The film uses both communication and silence as a mean to display humanity, pain, and determination. By powerfully using verbal and nonverbal communication to embody the struggles of the civil rights movement, Selma immerses the audience in the battle for equality. In terms of verbal communication, speeches were at the heart of the film with an emphasis on their content and tone. How Long, Not Long was an especially powerful speech given by Dr. King that exemplified his rigor and emotional appeal. The dialogue between Dr. King and President Johnson showcases their clash of wills. Dr. King has a calm and firm insistence, underscored by his deliberate pauses that created a sense of unwavering resolve, while President Johnson had a more abrupt, authoritative tone that revealed his sense of the sense of a political leader pressured into action. One such conversation that displayed this is when Dr. King asked the president, "We need your involvement here, Mr. President. We deserve your help as citizens of this country, citizens under attack." To which the president responded, "Now you listen to me. You listen to me. You're an activist, and I'm a politician. You got one big issue. I got 100. Their verbal duels are charged, intense, and display the battle between convenience and conscience. The film also uses nonverbal communication. The camera shots and angles show the nonverbal actions of marchers. Trembling hands, fearful gazes, sweat on brows, and looks of determination all illustrate collective strength that has power above spoken language. The violence faced by the marchers was shocking and jarring. Thuds of batons and bodies and screams of agony and terror were particularly visceral. Nonverbal cues between Dr. King and Coretta made their tension palpable. This displayed the volume of the sacrifices made behind closed doors. The forces impacting Dr. King in the film, I found that his spiritual faith and the community of activists around him were his two main driving forces. His faith imbued many of his decisions and were noted in scenes of prayer and solitude, including his prayer, "I am here, Lord, fighting for what's right." His calm gravitas was greatly contrasted with the fiery and energetic leadership of John Lewis, which created a dynamic interplay of idealism and pragmatism. I found the relationship of Dr. King and Mrs. King to be the most significant relationship in the film. The relationship anchors the film and highlights the personal stakes of what they're taking part of. Their dialogue is full of tension and vulnerability, encapsulated when Cred asks Dr. King, "Do you love me?" after finding out about his affairs. The heavy silence around them speaks to the emotional toll of Dr. King's public life and his marriage. The stillness of the scene, as well as the close shots of their faces full of emotion, humanizes Dr. King and highlights the struggle of their relationship. The scene also symbolizes the sacrifices of the Black women in the movement, the unspoken backbone of many social movements. Selma also highlights the value of dignity through resilience. This is captured in the hymn-like chants of the protesters saying, "We shall overcome." This song resonates with ideals of resistance and reflects their despair and hope simultaneously. Music was both sustenance and strategy, and tied the movement to African American traditions of spiritual resilience. Imagery of the marchers gripping hymnals while their voices overcoming fear and trepidation conveyed the unyielding sense of purpose in their shared cultural identity. The film also exposed the mechanisms of systemic oppression, especially in race and class. Governor Wallace, as seen below, embodies state-sponsored racism and delivers lines like, "You can't force integration on a society not ready for it." The stark lighting in his office mirrors his unrelenting stance. Conversely, the film depicts liberation as a group movement and through nonviolent resistance. The march on Edmund Pettus Bridge, with its wide-ranging shots of the mass of protesters facing mounted troopers, portrays human vulnerability against the oppression of the state. The slow-motion shots of the scene tell of the horror and brutality while also forcing viewers to confront the cost of battling entrenched power. There are two different handlings of privilege and power in this film, as seen by President Johnson versus Governor Wallace. The difference in their approaches highlights the positions of power can have varying impacts on those who assume them. President Johnson was a reluctant ally to the movement, trying to balance expediency with a moral responsibility, while Governor Wallace was a staunch segregationist and resisted change at all costs. The Black community's power is in the resistance. Power does not only lie with the political elites, but also demonstrates that collective action can bring about change. During Dr. King's speech in Selma, he says, "Those who have gone before us say no more. That means protest. That means march. That means disturb the peace. That means jail. That means risk, and that is hard. For we will not wait any longer. Give us the vote." This displayed the collective strength of the protesters. The iconic Bloody Sunday scene, as seen in the photo, is a masterclass that combines camera work, editing, and lighting to flawlessly capture the weight of oppression and the courage of the marchers. The use of wide shots captures the expansive Edmund Pettus Bridge and frames the marchers as small and vulnerable against imposing structures, while high-angle shots look down on the marchers and emphasize their exposure and the immense power imbalance. Close-ups of those marchers as they approach the troops show anguish, determination, and fear. This gives the audience an appreciation for the personal stakes of each protester and creates a connection. These shots also foster empathy and humanizes the massive marchers. The scene is filmed in harsh daylight and creates stark shadows, which heightens the realism of the scene and brutality of the event. The use of natural lighting makes the film seem raw and immediate. Once the troopers attack, the editing becomes rapid and disjointed. Shots of flailing limbs, close-ups of beatings, and constant tear gas play into the chaos, confusion, and terror of this scene. The editing immerses the viewers in the experience of the marchers and relentless nature of their oppressors. The lack of music also speaks to the unfiltered brutality of the troops as they mercilessly beat the protesters. The march from Selma to Montgomery was the most transformative event in the film for both the marchers and the nation, as shown when a marcher claims, quote, "The whole world is watching us," end quote. The images of protesters marching together with their hands linked is filmed with an almost golden, reverent lighting that transforms it into a metaphor for collective hope. This moment is a shift in identity from individuals to a unified demanding justice. Their victory resonates far beyond their individual stories and immortalizes the bridge as a sign of perseverance.